You're listening to Ka-Pow, the pop culture podcast. Comics, television, movies, and more. If it impacts fan culture, we have something to say about it. And now, your hosts, Jordan, Cliff, and Seth.
Hey everybody, it's Ka-Pow, the pop culture podcast, and we are delighted to have you with us once again. My name is Jordan Lowe.
Cliff Barnes.
I'm Seth. Yeah, we're delighted.
Delighted.
I feel delighted. I don't know about you. I want to thank Nathan Arnold for listening. I told him a few of your adventures when you were going to the con, and he was like, "Oh, is that going to be the next episode?" So he's looking forward to hearing what you have to say. And he said,
"Oh my God,
he's always the first download we get."
Oh,
He said he's always the first one. So
I like it.
we gotta appreciate that kind of loyalty.
I appreciate that. See, now I'm delighted.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it took. I had a blast at Heroes Con. I can't remember whether this is the third or fourth time I went. I guess it's probably fourth. I went in 2019 for the first time. Obviously did not go in 2020. I think I've went a couple times since then. I don't know. I went this year. That was fun. Got that shield now.
Yeah, this is like a reboot.
Session.
This is year 0 with the shield.
I went around exactly. It is. It's like I feel like I
gotta meet all the same people again.
I mean, it's actually good because if I started with the shield, I would never have been able to afford to get all the comics I wanted signed and the shield. So I went around for a couple years and got a bunch of comics signed by these people, but now I'm just carrying the shield around and a few comics. So it works out because it adds up trying to get these signatures.
Yeah.
This is in Charlotte.
Yes. Yeah.
This
Charlotte,
show's
North
been going
Carolina.
on since the 80s. It's like huge. It's one the most like comic focused. Like as shows grow, they tend to become more pop culture-y, and this one has kept its comic roots. So I think the pros really like going there, so that they attract some of the biggest, best names. So it's the guest list is crazy every year. So I'm definitely jealous. It's on my bucket list. I want to go at some point.
Yeah, there was I couldn't pass it up. There was a bunch of people that I needed to get on there. And I was pretty, I didn't just let everybody sign it. I got a couple looks from people like, "You're not even going to ask me?" I was like, "No, I don't." I'm pretty sure you never did any cap. The only person that I did cave was Jeff Isherwood. I don't know that he's ever done any cap, but the guy was so freaking nice and excited. I was just like, he's like, "Oh, can I sign it? I'll sign it for free." It's like, all right, yeah. And he's like, held it up and posed, and he's like, "Oh, here's my email. Send that to me, and I'll post it to my Instagram." I was like, okay. It's like, I was like, all right, dude. That's the kind of energy I'm looking for. It's like, if you want on it, you better. Well, I want to see you fight for it. And some people are like,
I'm really disappointed you didn't slap a KPP magnet right in the center where the Zach signature is supposed to be.
Yeah, I saw that.
That would have confused them. Hey, I want to see what Steranko said to that.
I saw the big sticker on right in the center.
Well, Jordan had a great suggestion because I was, like I had mentioned before, living rent free in my head was Brett Breeding and how he did not care.
You cannot just wake up and go to a show. It takes preparation. You got to know. You got to game plan.
Reach. He just went crazy signing huge. He has a great signature, but it was too big. And so I had to have a plan because I didn't want Steranko to sign in the center and right in the center. I knew he would think he should, and he probably should. So what do I do? And Jordan said, put some painter's tape on there. Just put a piece of tape that says, for Zach. And I did. I put that blue tape on there as a reserve for Zach. And I knew people would respect that.
Yeah, what kind of feedback did you get from the fellow creators?
Oh, I'll tell you. I'll go through everybody.
Okay, nice.
Let's just go through everybody. Let's see. I'll leave out some of the trials and tribulations of trying to get into the con because I get the VIP pass, and let's just say the system will be changed next year. I spoke to the guy that runs the place.
You carried your way right to the front of the line.
So I've got, I am known. I went right to Roy Thomas. I didn't get there till Saturday, and he was only there on Saturday. And I know he created Wolverine. I needed him on the cap, which I don't know if you've ever heard him talk or anything. He's still very with it. I don't know how old he is, but he's not befuddled or anything.
Well, his nickname in the bullpen was Roy the Boy Thomas, so I'm assuming he was younger than a lot of the other guys back then.
Okay. He doesn't look young, but he talks like he's young. He's totally with it. I know that when I got early Avengers comic signed a couple years ago, he was there. I know they charged me $20. Like there was a charge. This time it was donations for Humane Society because some of them do just donations to either the Heroes Initiative or whatever their charity is, or they just want paid for it, which anything's fine. But you could get up to 10 comics signed by him for a donation. You put $5 in there and get 10 comics signed. So I was like, I wish I'd got a few comics, but it's fine. I really just wanted the Shield sign. I get up there thinking, okay, I'm gonna make a $10 donation or something, get this sign. Till I get ready to put the $10 in, and his handler walks by, and it did say have a sign there that some items may have a different charge of like $10 or $20 depending on what it was. His handler walked by and just leaned over him and pointed at the Shield and said $40, which took me by surprise. I was like, I don't like you, sir. I was like, that is.
Oh, I was gonna put a 50 in the donation. Thanks, you have me.
I would, yeah, exactly. I should have said that. No, but I was like, that was shocking for the first signature I'm getting, and I know I've got 30 names on my list. So
that bothers me as someone who plans and coordinates and budgets when arbitrary things like that happen. It's like you're not helping things, sir. You're not.
Yeah.
My enjoyment. It's not aiding my enjoyment of this event.
Everybody wants their piece. They look at that. He looked at that Shield and saw a bunch of signatures on it and thought that's going to be worth something, and they wanted their piece of it. Whatever. I paid it. I had to get him on there.
They knew that. That's how they get you.
They knew it. Yeah.
That's my biggest negative. I'm not going to be negative about this, but this is my biggest negative about cons now is that, okay, yes, they charge for signatures. That ship has sailed. Okay. But that idea of something you're getting signed is valuable, so you owe me more. Who cares if I give you a ratty old trading card or $1 million comic? Your signature,
it's my thing.
It's for me. Yeah. So you don't. How do you value? Oh well, I charge more for you signing. Yeah, okay. What? I don't know. Whatever.
I think it's.
You can't.
I think though, with athletes today, there's a large percentage that will not sign for an adult because they feel like
I think everybody's going to flip it.
They're going to sell for high dollar and they're going to just be exploited. And
my problem with that is this: they cater to the vendors there, and give them deals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So why are you overcharging a fan when you give deals to the vendors? That's where what I don't like. I'll get to an issue I had with that.
Well, I saw Mark Hamill is going to be in Chicago, Fan Expo Chicago.
I saw
that's
that.
pretty cool. He doesn't do a ton of shows, especially around here.
Yeah.
And his autograph is like $300, I think, on like an 8x10 or something. I'm like, wow, okay. Sure. And then it was like, if it's like
how
a
much
3D
is it to get
object, I'll get there.
on your poster.
Then on like a 3D object, like a Funko Pop or something, or an action figure, add $100 to that. On something else, it would add $100. And then it said for posters, $699.
Oh my God.
If you wanted to get your Star Wars poster, full-size poster signed, $700. I'm like, well, I guess my action figure, my Batman poster's never getting a Mark Hamill signature on it.
Wow.
Gee whiz.
But again, like, it takes him the same amount of time to scribble his name. Like, what does the thing I own, what does it matter that I'm getting signed? But yeah, that is definitely, I'm sure fans have, they see what they flipping for on eBay. It's like, I want a piece of that.
Every time I go, I forget. I mean, I need to like listen to this podcast before I go next time, because I don't have perspective. I get there and realize, these people sign and do these cons, but the amount they do in this weekend or whatever, it's a drop in the bucket. Like, they really don't do such high volume. People are paying big money for stuff on eBay, signatures and things.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter how many of the stuff. There's still only a limited amount of things that they sign, and it's like, things are worth things, and they want, they know what they're worth. I don't know.
Some algorithm has got me on. I keep seeing things on a Facebook group like Autograph Collectors Club. I don't know what algorithm got me, but it's like, oh, I got this today, and it's from like people who have been dead 50 years, Marilyn Monroe and that kind of stuff, and it's like, yeah, that's cool, but it's not like you had any kind of personal.
Yeah, you didn't have the experience of it. Yeah.
Yeah, like that G.I. Joe Kickstarter we'll talk about later. Like, one of the tiers sold out instantly was the Larry Hama bookplate where he signed it. And people are dying to get this signature. It's like, you can just walk up to Larry. It was like, oh, not everybody goes to these Comic Cons. Like,
right.
If you're across the country.
That's the truth. I've met Larry like 10 times now. It means it's like, I feel like he knows who I am. It's just ridiculous. It's so funny. So yeah, when people are, I forget that perspective of people that don't see him twice a year.
So I get there being value to it. I get that. But yeah, to me, it's always just been, I want to meet this person and I want a memento of that memory. Like, I've never thought about selling an autograph. I have a comic shop. I could take long boxes full of stuff. Like, hey, sign a bunch of these and I'll sell them. Like, that's never crossed my mind to sell an autograph comic.
Right.
I'm a bad businessman, but
you're a bad businessman.
That's not my objective.
So then I went to John Romita Jr. and his was $25 for an autograph, and I was like, which it was $20 a couple years ago when I went. So everybody's creeping up. And
so his anchor, Scott Hanna, was $20. So that if the Tracer can get $20, right. JR ought to be able to get.
Yeah, I didn't even go to him because of that. But I was gonna get those Fallen Sun Cap issues signed, because Finch was there. I'm gonna meet Lionel Yu in Baltimore this year and get one signed. So John Romita was there. I'm gonna see Cassidy in Baltimore. I'm like, I'll have 4 out of 5. It's like, I'll just do this. And then I was like, well, I just spent 40 on Roy. It's 25 for Romita's. I'm gonna spend another 25 to get a comic signed when I already have a comic signed by him. So I just didn't do it. Maybe someday. I can't, you got to budget it out here. Can't do it all in one con. So, but he's of course super nice. John Romita Jr. is super nice, and he signed, and he thought, he thought it was funny. He got signed above Roy, the top of the star. I had them both in the star. Went to Kevin McGuire. He did, of course, some DC stuff, but he did there was a Cap mini series several years ago that he did. It's $5. He signed it. I was like, hey, so and they all, Roy got his picture taken with the shield, just laying on the table, and Romita held it. I got pics of them. So I still had everybody had got their picture taken with it. I told Kevin McGuire, he's like, sure, yeah, and he held it up and did like a good, real serious pose, and so it was pretty funny. Took his glasses off. I started clocking that, like a lot of people taking their glasses off when they hold the shield.
I bet they all suck their guts in too.
Oh, 100%. Or just held the shield in front of it.
They all look like that Rob Liefeld drawing. They suck their gut and pump their chest out.
Yeah, they're bad big titties. Yeah. I went over to Jim Starlin. He was just like, he actually was just walking around. I was like, hey, sign this shield. He's like, oh, sure. We were talking about being on the set of the Avengers and stuff, and he was like, they were shooting these suckers out of catapults, shooting them into things, and he's like, it was so neat. I was like, just saying, I was glad that they included him. He's like, oh yeah, they were real nice to me. He posed really well with it. He was all into it. Joe Rubenstein, big anchor, did a lot of cap, did some for the Burn and Stern run and other runs, and he offered to sign. He looked at the shield. He's like, oh my gosh. He's like, you want me to just sign right on top of Brett Breeding, just right over his name? I was like, that would be hilarious. Yeah, go ahead. But I let him sign in the Star also because he's old school. But he wouldn't pose. He said he got his picture taken with it, but wouldn't pose. He said he was in acting school, but he gave it up. I was like, okay. Went Ralph Macchio, not the Karate Kid, but even nicer. He was a super nice editor, did some writing and stuff. I had him sign Iron Man Annual 5. I think I like that cover a lot. And Jerry Bingham was there. He signed that cover also. He drew it. But Macchio was just like, he signed it, got his picture taken with it, took his glasses off. He was talking. He was just so nice. And he wanted to talk about Grunwald. He's like, oh, I was like, yeah, of course I wish I could get Mark Grunwald, but he talked all about how he was supposed to meet Mark the week he died. He was supposed to meet him and go over some plots, and that he had died. And Ralph is the godfather of Mark's daughter, and he said, well, I'm Italian, and I don't know if you saw the movie, but we take that very seriously. But extremely nice guy. Steve Epting, of course, did the Brubaker run, and he didn't charge me anything. I was going to have him I was trying to save money, I was like, it was early on. I'm trying to see where I am. I was thinking about having him do a sketch cover for Fallen Sun, and then I was like, I'll wait and see how this goes. But he's like, oh, I'll sign this for free. He goes, oh, reserved for Zach. He was the first one to make a comment about that. I was like, why don't you sign right here beside it, to the right? This is your point of the Star here. And I was like, he's like, oh, I know. He goes, because it's Zach. He goes, that's why he should sign the center. And then he posed just super seriously, very just standing up as tall as he could, straight face. And then he goes, okay, now you want one and I'll throw it. I was like, no, don't throw it. Michael Golden, I think only thing I had him sign a few years ago, Avengers Annual 10. He did that cover, the first Rogue appearance. He hid behind the shield it's okay. This will become repetitive. He hid behind the shield for the picture. Hilarious prank that they all do. Took his glasses off though for the pic and held it. Ron Garney, he was like, oh, you want this old face? in the picture, you know. And but he hid because he hid behind the shield first. Also, I was like, you can do that, I don't care. But he did pop his head out for a picture, and I kind of knew his story, and I said, I want you here right to the left of Zach. I thought you should be between Wade and Zach. And he's like, looked at me and just really seriously was like, I like it. Because Zach got him his job. You know, basically, he would not be working in comics without Mike Zach. Gene Ha, I've met him before. He signed like volume 3 number 50 for me last year, but he just took a donation for Heroes Initiative, and I assumed he would do this because he did a remark for free on my comic, but he did a remark, little cap head on there, and then he always writes "ha" with a question, with an exclamation point, and he did a real serious pose with the shield, and I told him I was going to put the "ah" in front of that, and he's like, I love it. And he named some other creator that had the A and H or H and A initials. Like, he goes, you could do this if that person was here, but I didn't even know who he was talking about. But I was saying I was going to get Adam Hughes to put "ah" in front of it, so it said "aha," because he always does AH exclamation point. I went to Lee Weeks, and he was busy, and he's like, I'm not signing right now. I was like, oh, okay, because it's free though if you come back. And then what they all do when they say that is they say, oh well, I have time, right? Yeah. I've had multiple people tell me they're not signing right now. They're drawing, which I understand. They take time for that, and it's like sometimes I don't see their sign. It'll say when they're signing, but then they always just end up signing it anyway. But he did, but I didn't get a picture of him holding it. This was the first person because he was busy, and I was like, okay, I'm not going to get everybody anyway, and I really just didn't want to bother. It became a thing where I wasn't going to bother people that were obviously super busy. So there are several people I did not get pics, but he was the first. Went to Michael Cho. We met him at Cincinnati Con last year. He signed it, and I was like, hey, you want your pic taken with him? He was like, no, you can erase my signature. I was like, relax, buddy. I was like, I'm not going to erase your signature.
And then I thought we took pictures of him in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Like, he posed with the comic.
He doesn't like it. He didn't like it then either, though. He didn't like. I knew he didn't like it when we did it, but he was just like, no. He just doesn't like the way he looks. I don't know. He looks fine to me, but
he's a handsome young man.
He's a handsome man. I don't know. I understand. I always like to respect. I was like, dude, I totally respect if you don't want your picture taken. Thank you very much for signing the shield. Relax. He's like, oh, okay. Then I went over to Larry. Larry was sitting there. I was like, hey, you want to sign the shield? Which he will sign. It was $20, but he'll sign anything if he personalizes it. It's free. I was like, well, I really don't want this personalized, so I paid the $20. Of course, it's Larry. He's nice. He's talking about all kinds of crap. Then I went to Jeff Fisherwood. That's when I got him to sign that Doctor Strange Sorcerer Supreme number 50, that super awesome lenticular cover. He's like, hey, people love this cover. I was like, it's awesome, Then he posed and wanted me to send it to him. I did. He posted it to Instagram. Adam Kubert was there. Very popular, but I happened to get there. I had paid attention to when he was going to start signing and got there about half hour early and got pretty close to the front line. Man, they promise to do stuff that they don't end up doing sometimes. I'd seen where he was, he had one of the 3 exclusive covers there with some Wolverine cover, and he was going to do this remark for a certain amount of money, and then apparently by Saturday he wasn't doing them anymore because they took too long. I was like, man, there were some mad people in line. I didn't care. I didn't even get the cover. I wanted him to sign a Cap cover. He did, and which he did sign. was super nice. He looked at the Zek thing and said, "Deservedly so." I was like, "Okay, thank you." And let's see, Ron Lim, who was a big, cap artist there, late '80s. He was very happy to be close to the star. J.G. Jones, he did some Avengers there that Jeff Johns run, and he had got up and stood with the shield, peeked over the top, tried to do a pose. I told him all, I said, "Have a nice con." He said, "I just did." I was like, nice. David Finch, his line is always the longest. I thought I was going to have to be there early and like do him first the next day, but somehow I happened to walk by when it was a short line and nobody was getting remarks, because he will just sit there, do them as he goes, and it takes forever. But he signed it. So it's like, I'm not much of a poser, but I'll try. And he stood up and smiled big. He's always very, very nice. Rick Leonardi, had him sign, of course, like everybody else, Spidey 2099 issue 1, and he signed the shield. He wanted to sign the shield, and he but I did not get a pic of him because he was so busy. Joe Jusko was there, and he had a cold, and you could tell it hurt to talk, but he would not stop talking to everybody. He was really just happy to be there, and he's got a very distinct signature, and everybody was talking about the Marvel Masterwork cards. We were all talking about how we had them, and he's like, "I just love how much everybody loves those." He's like, "I've been riding off those since the 90s." He's like, "Everybody loves those cards." Super nice. Tom DeFalco wrote, one of my fave issues ever, Thor 390. So where I had already had Ron Friends and Brett Breeding sign that previously, I got him to sign it. He was awesome. Took a pic with the shield and told some story about the Spider-Girl comic somebody had in front of me, and had like 3 different versions of it laid out. Was showing about how some word balloon had slid off of it in printing, and how there was this one guy had brought a version that was the only one that had the word balloon. It doesn't even make sense without it. Blah, 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 blah. It's a whole big story. It's interesting. Alan Davis did some, I want to say it was, what run was that? Maybe like volume 6 of Cap. He did some covers, did some of the art in. He kept tapping the shield to try to figure out if it was real. He's like, "What is this?" Because it's light. I think it's just aluminum. They make a bunch of different ones. I'm like, it's freaking vibranium. Don't you know anything? Then I went to Steranko. Jordan had got in my head. I blame Jordan for this, first off. As he said, "Oh, what are you going to do about Steranko?" He said, "I got to take a picture. No pictures." I was like, "Well, I'll respect it." And so I didn't even ask. And then afterwards, people were telling me he's taking pictures all day. He just wouldn't take them with big guys because he didn't like looking small. I didn't even want a picture with me. I just wanted him holding the shield. And I bet he would have done it. Well, everyone blamed Jordan. Maybe someday I'll get it. His handler was one of several to sing the Captain America cartoon theme song. "Captain America throws his mighty shield." They all wanted to sing that. When I did get up to Zach after he would not stop talking to this guy, oh my God. He went on and on. This is a thing. Obviously, I know with Roy Thomas recently, he's trying to take credit for Wolverine. Now, Steranko is there's some book coming out, by somebody, he said, trying to point out the things that he created that he doesn't get credit for in comics, which I'm sure there's a lot of things. I'm sure he was one of the early guys, and I know he came up with that. Yeah, he came up with the most famous X-Men logo with issue 50 when he did that cover with Polaris.
Nobody gets paid. Nobody gets credit.
Right. He was claiming all this stuff he did, and anyway, when I finally got up there, he looked at I said, I need you to sign right here under the stamp. He goes, Zach. That sounds like a sound effect. And he goes, I'm just kidding. Great artist. And I had that Zach Cap shirt on. I have that annual number 8 shirt. And he goes, oh, I suppose you're trying to impress me with that T-shirt. It's like, he goes, well, it's working. He's always on. That guy is on. Anyway, he was very nice.
He's a showman.
Yep. Ron Friends. I had talked to him one time before. He was just a big sourpuss. He just seems like he's just not ever in a good mood. He's perfectly nice, but he was mad at me for bringing him Thor 390 when I met him before. It's like he doesn't feel like he had enough to do with it, but he's credited on it, and he knows. I mean, he did stuff, but he's like, I've done other stuff. I was like, that's the only thing I care about, buddy. But anyway, I said, sign here. I got DeFalco above breeding. You just sign under it. Oh, I got to sign under Brett. And he goes, yay. He goes, I don't know if you know our relationship. I was like, I assume it's about the same as mine. And Brett's, I was like, I got a contentious thing going on with him too. You see how big he signed. And he's like, oh yeah, you know what I mean. Yeah. So I found some kindred spirits there. The end of the first day, I went over to Claremont, who has the longest booth in the whole place because he takes forever. But the one thing I had learned in the past was that he does not stop signing until his line is empty. And so I was, if you weren't in his line by, quarter after the place closed, they made you leave. But he stood there and signed, and he starts picking up the pace, so it didn't take that long. So he signed it, got his pick. Next day, I go there early. Second person in line for VIPs. Get in a little early, half hour early. I'm like, okay, so I'd got basically everybody. The only 2 ones that have notable lines that were left would be Adam Hughes and Scotty Young. I was like, I took a gamble that Scotty Young was hungover and wouldn't be there early. So I went to Adam Hughes. I'm the second one in line for the entire con, getting in a half hour early. And I was the second one in line for Adam Hughes' booth because there was a retailer already there because they get in an hour early. And so I'm going there just to get the shield signed, and there's a retailer in front of me with 100 things to sign. And do you think he let me go ahead of him? No. I was so pissed off. And Adam Hughes is sitting there like sweating to beat the band. It was not hot. Like he just like looked like he had you would think he worked I'm sure that I'm not trying to say this is not a difficult thing to sign your name a bunch, but I feel like some of these guys put on it a little thick, and all he signs is AH exclamation point. Like the 100 comics go by pretty quick like that, whatever. But his hand must have freaking hurt because he shook out a bottle of Aleve into his hand and 6 pills came out and he put 1 back. I was like, oh my God. The
place just opened. They're gonna kill me.
I was like, but of course it was day 4 for him probably. I don't know what all days he was there, and I'm sure he did some sketches and all this stuff. I'm not trying to say anything, but only reason I'm saying any of this is because he did not say, hey, let me get that guy's shield first. No, he didn't pay attention to me either, so suck it. But I got his awe in front of Gene Hawes' ha, so I was satisfied. Mike Grell told me a story. I had him sign. It's Mike Grell. He's around and he tells some story. He's got a cane now because he hurt his back, and he tells a story about he hit a mugger with this cane, and it's one of those collapsible things, and the end came off and swung around in a circle. And he's standing there doing it. It's like swinging around his shoulder, and Alex Saviuk, artist, is like, "You're Daredevil." He's like, "That's why I'm telling you this. I'm Daredevil." He's like, "Don't tell anybody." Talked about getting his eyes fixed and could see so much better, and how his detail had got so much better than how he used to draw. And he's like, I found out I'm a realist. I like the detail. Greg Rucka was super nice. I had him sign Gotham Central #1 because I really like that series, and he signed the Shield. And was just super nice. We talked about Lazarus and how he had done that series was made into an RPG for this. It uses the same system we use for Dragon Age, and we were just talking about it. Super, super nice guy. Went over to Alex Saviuk, had him sign it. He offered to throw the shield. He sang the song, and he did like a bunch of stuff, of course. But I had him sign before the Captain America versus the Asthma Monster, and we were talking about special comics like that. He liked doing special comics like that for doctors' offices and things, and restaurants, because they paid more. It was advertising. Charles Soule was there. He signed it for free. He had done like one of the Civil War side series is Rick Parker, letterer, done a lot of Cap. I went over to him and talked to him. He was talking about Grunwald and Macchio, and how Macchio looks like he's like, I hadn't seen Ralph in a long time. He's like this kind old grandpa. He's like, just like, it's like he was really talking some shit about Ralph Macchio. How nice and old he was. Really appreciated that I knew who he was. And lastly, went to Scotty Young about a half hour before he even showed up at 1:30. And if I'd have known that he had a variant came out that week, of Cap, I would have got it signed, but I didn't know. But he did sign the Shield. Super nice as always. Picked up he had a few variants sitting out there, and I saw they had one of the printings for the Transformers comic. I was trying to look for something to pick up for you guys, and I got the Jordan, the Transformers variant, signed by Scotty Young, because I was guessing he didn't have a Scotty Young signed thing, and I wanted to get something that was hard to get, because out of a long line that I was still already standing in. I was like, here, this one's hard to get. So I'd done everything I needed to do. I'm like, this is it. I have not had a minute yet to actually go look at comics or anything. I'm like, I'm going to walk around a little bit before I mosey my way out of here. And I looked and looked for maybe 20 minutes or so. And I was like, I'll go say bye to Larry before I leave. And as I'm walking towards his booth, there's a booth right beside his, like around the corner, with like vendors that I hadn't been looking at vendors. I'm like, what is this? It's got a bunch of G.I. Joe, insignia on it here. And they've got some big book on a podium there for you to look at. It's like, what is this crap? I go and I start looking at it. People are going around taking turns looking at it. It is an art book for all the G.I. Joe toy art
from the beginning,
the early 80s. Yeah, from the, after the 12-inch figures. Yeah, this is from the early 80s.
All the real American hero stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I just stood there and flipped it. I was like, this is amazing. And I was flipping through, and I saw like the one that really caught my eye and got me really looking more was because it was just like nostalgia boom, was a blue Cobra raft with Firefly on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I had it. Mm-hmm. I had that as a kid. I was like, I had this. And I mean, I had tons of G.I. Joe stuff, but that was one of my favorite things and one of the first things I got. And he's like, "You had that?" You know, these guys were younger than me. He's like, "You had that?" I was like, "Yeah, it was awesome. I loved it." You know, and but anyway, I flipped through it, and it was just so well put together. I was just so amazed how well put together it was. How the edges of the paper tell you what year you're in and what what certain thing you're looking at. And it was like, I mean, not the pages were fold. As many of the pages folded, you could fold out into 4 pages, and it was just tons of stuff, tons of words. I was like, beyond literally all the art, tons of blown up pictures, scans of things that he was telling me how they had to go around to the original scans everywhere and get this stuff. How much work was put into it, and just thousands and thousands of words explaining everything about everything. I was very impressed. And the price was, I felt like for the work and quality of what I was looking at, the price was very fair. Like, I was like, this price I'm kind of surprised it's not more than this. So I was like, do I want this? I was like, I kind of want this, but I don't. Like, where am I going to put this? I don't want this in my house. I was like, this is like.
But I would like it close by.
I wouldn't mind it in the general vicinity. Yeah. And I was like, oh, this. And then it was way easier for me to get on board for getting it as a present, because I was like, okay, I can't justify this for myself, but I felt like a facilitator. I was just the middleman here. I was in a place where this thing was. I didn't know it existed. I literally love. I buying presents for people, whatever. I hate buying people stuff that's just whatever. It's just like, you're just doing it because you're supposed to buy them something. But when you find something that someone should have, now we're talking. Now I'm like, okay, I'm just the middleman here. I'm just making sure that this gets to this person. They're meant to have it, and I've looked at it and can't confirm that they should have this thing. And I was like, and the guy was like, apparently he'd given this speech enough, through the weekend. He was like, you don't have to buy it today. You could order it online. I was like, but if I order it online, Larry's not going to sign it. It's like, Larry Hama is sitting right there. Yeah. And I was like, and I know he will sign it for free. Yeah. He's like, that's true. I was like, all right. Well, he's like, oh, and you get all these prints, like a bunch of stuff that, what I probably would have got it anyway, but it was like, it came with a whole folder, like, a million, 20 some prints, huge. It was like that, I was like, that's crazy. They had picked out 12 prints, and then they had people, this was a Kickstarter they had done last year. And it ended earlier this year, I guess. And so, the fans had picked out 12 prints, and they did all these prints, and he talked about how much money they had put into it, how much money they made, and just really giving me all the details. I said, all right, give it to me. And he goes, mission accomplished. And I was like,
he had that just waiting.
Oh, he did. So I got it. I was like, okay, crack this baby open. I was like, I got to take it over here. I took it over to Larry. And I said, I saw he was signing someone else's. Yeah. And he was signing inside. It comes in a magnet closed case for the omnibus or whatever. It has the cover of G.I. Joe 1 on it or whatever. You open it up and it has figure art inside that, which it has the figure art.
And it looks like
every
the case.
Figure.
Yeah.
Yeah. It looks like if you open up a case where you keep your figures. It has the little plastic bar in front of him with the names of the things. Right. And then he was signing. There was his figure in there.
Yeah, tunnel rat.
A Larry Hama. Yeah, a Larry. It's there. It says Larry Hama, and that's where he'd like to sign. he was signing with gold Sharpie.
Mhm.
You couldn't see it. He was literally signing someone's case in gold, and I was like, ugh. You couldn't see it. It was too dark. And so I got this out, and I was like, okay. And he had a silver Sharpie on it. I was like, hey, Larry, I want you to sign this for a buddy of mine. And I was like, put to Cliff. He's like normal Cliff. He's like I think it's spelled. I was like, yeah, it's spelled like if you knew a guy named Cliff. That's how you spell it. And he goes, okay. I said, but I want it in silver, not gold. I want it to show up. And he goes, yeah, my silver's out ink. And I was like, oh, okay, I want to give you. I was like, I'm leaving. I have 2 brand new silver Sharpies. He's like, oh, okay, thanks. And then his handler comes over. He's like, Larry, I bought all these Sharpies. All you have to do is tell me you're out of ink. There's a whole bunch over here. He's like, oh, he doesn't bother to tell them he's out of ink. But anyway, I gave him my Sharpies, and he signed it to Cliff from Larry Hammond. I was very satisfied and lugged it out of there. But yeah, I was flipped through it. It had little pictures of every G.I. Joe that came out.
Yeah.
And the card had the front and back of them in the blister. Just like that alone
is
cool, is enough to have. Like just the fact of having every single figure like that, and every toy, just every single toy,
every single one,
every vehicle that came out.
Yeah, and
shit you never even heard of.
All the artwork. It tells you who did it, where it came from, where they used it in different places. I mean, it's outstanding. I knew this existed because I had watched a YouTube review promoting, I guess, the Kickstarter, I don't know, within the last year. And I was just like, oh my gosh, and it was kind of going through a bunch of the pages and the pullouts and everything. I was like, this thing is amazing. And since then, I had picked up, when I was at PowerCon last year, I talked about this, I had picked up, or backed a Kickstarter from a guy that was doing, it's called a wish book, like the old Sears wish book, featuring different lines of toys from the 80s. And his plan, he wants to do multiple volumes and each volume would have like different lines in it or whatever.
And that's the first thing I thought of was like, this is kind of Cliff's thing.
Yeah.
Like I was like, he collects this kind of thing. I know he's going to like this. Like,
yeah. And
because I was thinking of that wish book.
Right. So that got me, and I was like, this is amazing because I loved the toy catalogs growing up like everybody did. And I used to look at them endlessly and the pictures of the toys and the listings and everything. It was, I mean, that was a highlight of your year back then. And then, when we were at the Great Ohio Toy Show a few months back, my wife and I had looked at Pixel Dan's book. He did a similar project that he wrote himself with Masters of the Universe. It was it wasn't as big as this book, but it was a great big thick 750 pages books. I've talked about it too. Illustrating, he did all the photography himself of all the toys and packaging and detailing everything, every small little minute thing that he could talk about. And it's an amazing book, and I had picked that up at that show after looking at it like 3 times and picking it up, and I was like, finally, I have to get this book. I've looked at it so many times. so this fits immediately right in with those other 2 books.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And it's a nice little collection of, a bunch of toy lines.
My favorite part was taking it over there and being like, telling your wife, here you go. I hope find a place in this house for this enormous thing. She's like, oh, this is staying here? I was like, yep. Yeah. I don't have any room for it in my house. Here you go.
Yes, very, very grateful. It is amazing, this book. Like, I don't know what could possibly could have been added to it to that isn't
Right,
already
I agree.
there. So
I was amazed at the content.
yeah.
So I just
and then
seemed like a home run. I'm
yeah, definitely was. Having Larry sign it, it's amazing.
Yeah.
I love the box to it because the
Yeah.
box just, I mean, it fits right in with the toy line. It feels like a figure case. And
yes.
I
like the magnet closure.
Yes.
You know, it's awesome.
So yeah,
They did a very high quality job on
They
that
did.
whole thing. It's just
They
like
did.
it is as nice a product as I've seen from any Kickstarter. So
right.
So if somebody out there,
yeah,
if this sounds like something to be interested in, what's the exact name of it, Cliff?
Well,
I don't, or
I think
where
it's-
could they look at it? Because
the Kickstarter was under 3D Joe's. I think it's 3D, just the number 3D Joe's.com, and I think you can find it right there.
Because they did very clearly say, you know, they have them, you know, you can order them
buy
online.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought the price was reasonable for
Yeah.
what you are getting.
Yeah,
It is like a very dense, high quality product.
it is massive.
I think if this is a subject you're interested in, you're going to have hundreds of hours of reading it and looking at pictures.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's awesome.
I've barely made a dent in it so far, and I've spent some time with it. So, so yeah, after it was funny because I was telling these guys earlier tonight, we've had a bit of bad luck in the last couple of weeks of just things that could go wrong going wrong. And then Seth had you know, messaged us or me and was like, hey, I got you something or whatever. And I was like, that weekend, it was on Father's Day, I had woken up in the middle, you know, like midnight, and did something to my back, and it was freaking out and I was having back spasms and could not move. Absolutely could not move.
I was like, you're not going to be able to lift this present, so I'm not going to bring it over you.
Yeah. So I had to wait a couple days, but yeah, till I was feeling better. But yeah, I was just like, there is no way I could have handled that thing at that moment. So, but yeah, I mean, it certainly made my week a lot better.
You got busy trying to buy a new car and stuff, so now you have some free entertainment.
Right.
You just sit at home and look at your book.
That's
now,
right.
does this make you like looking at all these toys? Like, do you want to? Has it spurred something to want to start collecting them, or is the book enough? You're like, I got all the content. Like, I can.
I will tell you. Before he answers, I will tell you that when I was flipping through it at that con, I knew I was in dangerous territory.
Yes.
I was looking, because these are high quality photos of toys in the blister pack, and I'm like looking at my childhood there, like front and back of these things. Like, this is very dangerous. I'm about to start getting on eBay.
Yeah, it hits hard. And that was kind of when I bought those other books, that was kind of my, you know, thought as a toy guy who does buy that stuff, and I get hooked into, especially if it's like you said, if it's something I had as a child, I'm like,
it hurts.
And I no longer have that. I'm like, I want that.
Yeah.
I have adult
the
money.
The intention is for this to, you know, get you through it. This is your replacement.
This
takes look at the pictures.
This takes up a whole lot of space on a shelf, but it does not take up an entire room or more. So,
exactly.
Yeah. So it's very neat, and it's a neat thing to have these books, like especially with my son. He's in his early 20s now, and this stuff, he has no idea on a lot of it, what existed back then. But he has interest in a lot of the properties because I've presented it at some point or talked about it or whatever. So as a reference point, it's pretty damn neat that you can just pull it out and just be like, oh, here. I mean, the whole thing. It's right here. Everything there was. This is how it existed in high quality, perfect pictures. No grainy, no folds, no nothing. It's from the original source in perfect condition. This is how it was intended.
Well, definitely, when you have people over your house, you'll know who you got over there. If somebody comes over, you're like, I think this person's. I'm gonna have to lay this out here on the ottoman or the coffee table here. Yeah, see if they bite.
It is a spectacle. Yes. So it's pretty amazing. The pull
I didn't
out
see
sheets
Russ there.
You didn't see Russ at the show? Yeah, I know.
I knew he was there.
Yeah, he was there. He told me he was planning on going. He was pretty.
I was my one worry that he would see that place and send you a picture of the place or something. Like I like he's gonna see this and immediately message Cliff.
Yeah. No. Yeah, I haven't talked to him since then, but I probably will over the holiday here, for sure. But yeah, no, I'm very grateful. I was very thankful. It's an amazing gift, and I haven't been over to George's yet, but I'm sure next time I'll come toting it. Because it's something to look at. Yeah. So,
Cliff, how much do you think we could get on Kickstarter if we start cataloging the history of little loggers? We get a photograph of all the little loggers.
Man.
Put it together.
What's a little logger? I forget what a little logger is. What's that?
It was a sponge, basically in the shape of a log that had two little cutouts, and it came with two little, plastic figures that were bath toys, and they were like lumberjacks with like an animal.
Little loggers are lumbermen. Got their pets and tools with them.
Ranger Rick's got to move the log downriver.
Chops the beaver can help.
It's Kenner's new little loggers. You can fill them with water.
Floating logs every way. Yeah, squirting water when you play.
You can collect Jumper Joe with Rocky Raccoon, too.
Timber!
Little loggers. Ranger Rick with Chops the Beaver, Jumper Joe with Rocky Raccoon. Each set sold separately. New from Kenner.
And they called them little loggers, and you could, squeeze them, and they'd fill up with water, and then squeeze them again and squirt water out of its mouth. So, yeah. It's a great toy in the 80s.
Okay. I'm sure. Huge. I'm sure there's a huge Little Loggers Omni out there.
So
somebody's got to do it.
That's right. That would be a neat thing.
But yeah, that was a popular G.I. Joe Kickstarter. I heard there was another one.
Yeah, speaking of Kickstarters, we just had the biggest, most successful comic book Kickstarter in history. The record used to belong to a Good Omens comic, based on the novels Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett. That was the highest money-making comic on Kickstarter ever. And that's that's comic people, but Neil Gaiman has an audience outside of comics. Terry Pratchett is a huge sci-fi fantasy author, so that maybe had a little bit of advantage. People who wouldn't normally just read comics, that had more mainstream pull. This was G.I. Joe. This was like the most, fan-friendly 80s property. Yeah, so this made $3.7 million, or 10,300 plus backers. I think their goal to start was $50,000. Skybound was reprinting all the Marvel content in 4 hardcover omnibuses. So these are coming out in paperback. Volume 1 comes out this fall, like September, October-ish. But these were the deluxe hardcover editions. So you're getting all 155 issues of Real American Hero, the Special Missions comic, there's yearbooks, the special one-shot that Todd McFarlane had drawn and got rejected, and then they just published it later after he became a huge star. So it was that's a hard-to-find issue, so that's going to be in there. The G.I. Joe Transformers 4-issue, the Order of Battle, which is like the Who's Who, basically, like file cards, basically. So basically everything Marvel published from that run is going to be collected into these 4 hardcover volumes. A slipcase cover, just looked gorgeous. So I saw an ad for it on Facebook, and I was like, what is this? And I clicked on it, and it was like the second day of the campaign. It got funded in like 6 minutes. Like, it was already going into the stretch goal and stuff. Yeah. And I'm like, whoa. So it got this huge response, thousands of comments, people commenting on it every day, people tracking it. Like, they got really invested in it. Like, we're going to push it over, 2.2 today. Like, people were like following this like their favorite sports team. So it was a crazy community online. And so the stretch goals, it started adding in, we're putting a ribbon bookmark in all of them. So it looked like a classy hardcover book. We're putting spot gloss on the covers. We're putting foil on the trading cards. they gilded the edges like a Bible, like it's shiny. It's like shiny edges on the paper.
Obvious reason.
Perfect. Yeah. And so like the trading card, I think it started with 6 trading cards. And then it was like every stretch goal was like, we had 2 more trading cards, and they had the fans vote. So people were voting for the most popular one. And apparently this meme started beginning of like everyone started wanting to vote for Zap. Like, come on, we got to get a Zap trading card. Like Zap became like the mascot of this thing. And you know, he's not a famous enough Joe. He was not quite there. So when the campaign ended and they had this huge success, they sent an update, and it was like, as a thank you to the fans, we're putting 1 more card out. You got it. It's Zap. So, like, they heard what the fans were saying and, like, rewarded them with this card. So people were cheering, like, yes, we got our Zap. So it just became a cool, I don't know. It's like, sometimes, you know, you do get invested in this stuff, and it becomes more, right. You know, I own the comics. Okay, whatever. But no, I'm a part of something now. I'm a part of this community that helped bring this to life. So I get the joy that brings people, and you know, getting, and it was like choose a side. You got the Joe rewards or the Cobra rewards. So people were arguing over, oh, they have the cooler cards for this, and it was a cool thing. And, you know, they made a ton of money, and I could see people being like, well, you know, you're cutting the retailers out. Like, you know, why does this big successful company like Image Comics need to do a Kickstarter? They could just publish this stuff their own. But it was a cool event, a cool moment in comics this year. So I waited till the last day. Literally, there were like 3 hours left. I'm like, am I doing this or not? And I finally pulled the trigger and got it. There was a retailer tier where you could get them at a discount if you wanted to sell them in your shop. And I thought, that seems like a sign from heaven that I don't even have to pay full price for this. So I gotta get in on this. I pledged and got myself a set.
Yeah, that's good. A lot of those Kickstarters like that do take into account brick and mortar stores, and your friendly local game or comic shop has some sort of tier that they can get involved. So I was glad to see that.
Yeah, as they should.
It's pretty awesome. Pretty awesome. I wonder where they got this idea.
I want to take credit for it, and maybe I will. Let's do that. So I wrote a letter to Skybound because these books have been great. They've been good. They've been high quality, and they've been selling really well. And that's not always the case for a lot of comics in the last few years. So I just wanted to write a note and wrote to the editor and said, hey, I appreciate, you know, the quality you guys are doing, and let him know these are selling really well. Even after a year, these have been in print. But then I ended the letter saying, hey, you know, please, my only request, let's get these Marvel things back in print. And I literally said, I think they would fit perfectly into 4 omnibuses. And I said, with 3 volumes of the 155, and then the 4th volume with all the special missions and the yearbooks. And so I sent that away, and it wasn't a week later after I sent that, they put a press release out. Hey, we're collecting all the G.I. Joe books in these omnibuses. I was like, they heard me. So now it's
they immediately act.
So it's been like 3 months since I wrote the letter. So that's like, these have been in public knowledge for a long time. So it got printed this week. G.I. Joe 307, got Destro and Baroness on the cover. They printed my letter. I was the last letter in there. And
that's awesome.
The response was like, hey, good news. Turn the page or hit the QR code. It was like, they use my letter as an advertisement. They'll sell the books I was asking for. But I
just the way it was meant to be. You're used by the system.
Yeah.
Yep.
That you love so much. You're just another cog.
That's my role in this.
That's pretty
now
awesome.
My 3rd letter published in a comic book. But hey, The Real American Hero, like I said, I've been reading that literally my whole life. The Post Box, The Pit. I've read all those letters columns, all those kids writing in, asking dumb questions and wanting no prizes, and I'm a part of that long chain now. My name is etched into the letters.
I would definitely keep a copy of that.
Yeah.
Letters page in my Omni there.
At short reach. Yeah.
He's got
multiple,
several copies off there. You get.
I ordered that in the main cover, and then I ordered the B black and white cover, so I've got
nice
multiple covers.
Nice, yeah, good. That's pretty awesome. Wow,
it's been a good week for G.I.
Talk about Talk about delightful. That's a bunch of delightful news there.
And my brain's popping, man. When that box shows up in December, I want to do an unboxing video. I want to start doing reviews of these books. I want to do more G.I. Joe here at KPP. So
who wants to hear us read, review issue by issue?
I had a good idea. We could talk about like source material of these comics. We could start doing a podcast.
Oh, holy
about
cow!
Source material.
That's a good idea for.
That just sprung into my head.
Wow, you should send a letter to somebody and give them that idea. Tell them that's a great idea. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. Only took 40 years.
Yeah. How many letters have you written to them before you finally got one printed? That's the news I want.
That's the first one to G.I. Joe. I've written 4 in my life, and 3 have been printed.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
So the one that didn't, I wrote Hawkeye when with a
scathing Hawkeye letter. Never lost to time.
David Aha and what's his name? Doing Hawkeye. Fraction, yes. So I wrote a letter saying that was like the best book they'd done in ever. And actually, the editor, Steve Wacker, emailed me back. He didn't print the letter, but he emailed saying thank you. I have got a. I'm 4 for 4 with a response to all these comics. So that's
pretty good. What else are you printed in? What were the other letters?
Deadpool back in like 2001 or something like that. Like, I think I was in college still. I wrote the Deadpool. And then Fantastic Four earlier this year. So.
Oh, that's right. Jeez.
He's on
I'm a letter hack. I'm going to give me that low price someday.
Oh, man. I got to finish the conversation. What was the other letter that did not get printed?
Oh, Hawkeye. It said Hawkeye didn't get printed, but he emailed me back.
Oh, but I thought there was another one. You said 3 out of 4. Oh, okay.
3 out of 4.
Yeah,
Deadpool,
yeah. Okay,
Deadpool FF, and G.I. Joe have been printed.
Okay. All right. Just making sure. All right.
Wow. Big doings.
Yep. I think we did it. I think that's an episode. Feels like a lot of stuff there.
A lot of info.
All right.
All right. There's you have it. Yo, Joe, etc. We hope you're enjoying all this stuff that we're enjoying, this nostalgia.
Mm-hmm.
We're living in great times. They're catering to us. They're giving us what we want.
Finally.
Enjoy it. Don't be bitter about stuff. Just enjoy it. It's good stuff.
Now we know.
And knowing is half the battle.
We've been waiting
and
our whole lives.
Knowing is half the battle. And don't touch
No.
If a power line is down in your town, don't touch it. Wait till an adult gets there.
Yeah. Right.
Knowing is
What's
half
the
the
pork chop?
Pork chop sandwich.
Pork chop sandwiches.
What's the?
All right. I got nothing. My name is Jordan Lowe.
Cliff Barnes.
Mission accomplished. Bye forever. I'm Seth.
Ka-Pow, the pop cultured podcast, is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Sounds, music, and clips played during the podcast are property of copyright holders. All original content is property of www.udownwithkpp.com. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe and leave a comment. Ka-Pow, the pop cultured podcast, can be found on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Podbean, Spotify, and wherever podcasts can be found. You can connect with us through social media on Facebook, YouTube, at the Ka-Pow Podcast on Twitter, or email the show, Ka-Pow, the pop cultured podcast @gmail.com. If you really want to go the extra mile, join our Patreon at patreon.com/udownwithkpp for special content and access to Patreon-only benefits. We are grateful for anyone who chooses to contribute, but please know that most of our content will remain free. So please continue to like, comment, and share.